was astounding was at the end of the day, after the long negotiations and the delay in confirming Todd Blanche, how little the Republican senators got for their efforts. Basically, Blanche did nothing more than write down what he had already told them.
Well, here is some good news out of the Senate finally, because as you probably know, one of the major jobs that Senate Republican leadership needs to get done before the midterms, besides the passing of the Save America Act, is obviously the confirmation of Todd Blanche as Trump's Attorney General. Blanche, of course, has been serving as the acting AG in place of Bondi, and by the way, has been doing a very good job. You're seeing a lot of stuff competently now beginning to roll out of the DOJ, but obviously, if we want him to remain there permanently, the Senate's going to have to confirm him, and no, we cannot wait until after the midterms to do this, because you don't know how the midterms are going to go necessarily. Republicans have a good shot, certainly, at retaining the Senate. We're probably the favorites there, but you don't want to go in with that mentality when you can get this done now. You might sit there and think this should be the easiest thing in the world. A Republican Senate needs to confirm the Attorney General right now. But of course, that thus far for the past week has not been the case, specifically because of two RINO Republicans on the committee who are both coincidentally seemingly upset that President Trump has ended their political careers. That, of course, includes Senator John Cornyn out of Texas. Anyone remember that grandstanding idiot just lost his primary after Trump endorsed Paxton, opposing the Save America Act, all of those type of things? Well, he was one of them, saying he will not vote to confirm Blanche out of committee. And the other one there was North Carolina Senator Thom Tillis, who we've reacted to many times throughout the past year. Basically, this loser has been upset ever since January 6th. We're not making that up. He still, to this day, will not shut up about January 6th. If you recall, he also blocked the confirmation of Trump's DC attorney pick, before the one right before Judge Jeanine, the original one, saying the same thing. Oh, well, he defended some of the J6ers, and so I'm very scared he's not going to, keep on grandstanding and stroking my ego and going on MSNBC talking about January 6th. This guy's such a loser, but likewise, will be retiring after this year because, he didn't even try to run for re-election, knowing how deeply unpopular he is, one of the worst senators in all of America. But basically, they were sitting here on committee, petty, spiteful, saying not going to confirm. Well, it has since been the case at the start of this week that for whatever reason they have caved, and as of today, the U.S. Senate advanced him out of committee. That will now go to a floor vote, and as it currently stands, it seems as if at the very least Republicans are going to get this done, which is certainly good news. At the very least, for the past week or so, MSNOW and liberals have cheered on the RINOs, right? Cornyn and Tillis as heroes with principles. And guys, they're really taking a stand here for J6. Look how humiliated Trump is. The Republican Party's falling apart. And effectively, ever since now that the RINOs have caved, suddenly, the tune has totally shifted. So let's talk about it, guys. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. That is the best way to support our work, but it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And that said, so if you've been paying attention to this story this past week, and it is kind of honestly monotonous, so we won't get too much into it, but to make a long story short, if you recall that whole thing about how Trump was looking to set up a anti-weaponization fund, which was this $1.776 billion fund meant to compensate victims of wrongful January 6th prosecutions, which, by the way, never ended up happening. But, basically, you had John Cornyn and Thom Tillis saying, wait, but what if he does it? And so their whole thing with Todd Blanche was that we won't confirm him because we're scared he's going to revive the anti-weaponization fund. To which I first of all say, what a horrible thing. People who were very harshly and disproportionately and unfairly prosecuted by the government might receive compensation for the fact their lives were completely ruined. But still, regardless. So how petty this got, even though, again, that didn't end up becoming a thing, and realistically, sure, I mean, probably those people would have to sue the government themselves for damages rather than the government automatically granting, because that's just how the system works. But still, regardless, They spent the whole last week, even though the thing has been killed, going around and saying, we want written confirmation from Trump, legally binding in writing, that Todd Blanche is not going to restore the anti-weaponization fund and all this and all that. And it's like, yeah, totally, Thom Tillis. It's not because you've been seething about January 6th. You've been trying to block every single Trump cabinet nomination for anything because you say January 6th this, January 6th that. It's completely obnoxious. Get over it. It's a dead issue. Those people have already been pardoned. So what do you expect the DOJ to do about it at this point anyway, right? But that was a thing, of course, as it pertains to Ken Paxton. I'm sure you're not angry about your career being ended, right? But nonetheless, it is now, of course, the case that in the end, because it always has to go this way, Trump made the calls, he picked up some phones, and we won.
Hill to advance the nomination of Todd Blanche to become our next attorney general. Blanche recently gaining support from GOP holdouts Thom Tillis and John Cornyn after he vowed to end the $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund proposed by the White House. The two senators releasing the following statement, quote, "We want to express our gratitude to Mr. Blanche and his staff for working with us on this, and we look forward to voting to advance his nomination out of the Senate Judiciary Committee soon."
Yeah, so as usual, I really do question with many of these rhinos, who the heck do these people think they are? Because especially in the case of Cornyn and Tillis, it's not enough to simply oppose Trump or be a rhino grandstander. It's the constant moralizing, right? It's Thom Tillis speaking as some type of authority figure in the conservative movement, explaining why you're losing your principles, and here's why everyone should really listen to Thom Tillis. And yet in reality, you have John Cornyn, lost his primary by a lot. We have another character very similar like Bill Cassidy. He's another January 6th grandstander. As incumbent senator in Louisiana, just only got 25% of the vote in his own primary as an incumbent senator, which is crazy, which is to say what? People can't stand you. Nobody likes you. Go away, dude, right? Thom Tillis didn't even make an attempt to run for re-election because he knows his results would have been like Cassidy. He is an insanely, wildly unpopular senator out of North Carolina. He didn't even give it a try because everybody can't stand this guy, right? Yet at the end of their terms, having been, again, repeatedly defeated, repeatedly proven wrong on all of these issues, they sit here and pretend as if they have some type of authority. And the reason I bring that up is because I want you to take a listen to Thom Tillis' speech in which he announces, yeah, I've caved to Trump. I've bent the knee. I'm going to confirm Todd Blanche, but I want you to know I'm not happy about it. And it was only because you spent a week putting it in writing and stroking my ego and letting MSNBC praise me. Now, fine, I'll do it. But, I had to have this childish temper tantrum, which is basically what the entire thing was.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Senator Cornyn. I am by no means going to match up against Senator Cornyn, a lawyer and a former judge, except to say that I believe that we have addressed the concerns that I have. The first one I called the payout pot for punks. I've never liked this 1776 fund. It made no sense to me, and I thought it was an insult to the police officers and the people that defended us on January the 6th. It's done. It's been rescinded, and I am satisfied. I also feel like Senator Cornyn addressed the other piece of it that has to do with the audit to my satisfaction. The thing that interests me, and I'm kind of curious about the speeches that come after here, is how everybody has this view of they are as pure as the driven snow, and it's the other side that has a problem. I think we both have a problem, folks. If you want to talk about weaponization, take a look at the Biden administration. Take a look at the Obama administration. Take a look at Crossfire Hurricane. Take a look at the codes that Lois Lerner used in the IRS to target businesses to try and unbank them. Take a look at the prospective pardons on the way out the door that President Biden did for family members, for staff members in Congress. The bottom line is nobody is clean here. And until we start recognizing this behavior as bad, we're just going to one-up it. Maybe it's a little bit more intense in this administration than the last one, and that a little bit more intense than the prior administration, and so on and so forth. But folks, we've got to end this stuff. We do. I'm going to support Mr. Blanche's nomination, but what I hope I see out of him is a bending of the curve of this absurdity. The 86-47 some bonehead in North Carolina thinks that that's a crime. Well, they better damn sure have information to back it up, because if all it is a picture, that person should lose his job, his or her job.
Yeah, what a douchebag. This guy just likes to hear himself talk. That's all that it is. And I guess probably that's how we convinced them. We just sat down and let him, have his angry old man grievance. And at the end, you're all right, Todd. Give me a freaking break. But you know what? Fair enough. He voted yes on it in the end. John Cornyn, same exact thing. What's hilarious now is the Democrat reaction. And Trump pulled off a pretty good one here, because it was very evident that Democrats were pouncing on the refusal of Todd Blanche as Attorney General. Initially, they were saying, yes, the RINOs are going to save us. This crazy MAGA guy is not going to end up running the DOJ much more competently than the last one, because you're already seeing that. To make a long story short, I think Thom Tillis' MSNBC contributorship, which he was certainly looking for, has likely been rescinded. It's been canceled because we have Cory Booker, MSNOW, and a lot more flipping out after the RINOs in the end ultimately caved to Trump. And that's basically how you know it's a massive victory.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Well, it looks like Donald Trump gets to keep his lawyer permanently installed as the country's top law enforcement official after all. Two outgoing Republican senators had been holding up the confirmation vote of acting Attorney General and former Trump defense attorney Todd Blanche. But today, well, we sort of saw this coming. Thom Tillis and John Cornyn backed off. They blinked and gave Blanche's nomination the green light.
It's because we're surrendering any shred of integrity left. And now we're letting an attorney general become the highest law enforcement officer in the land, and putting no holds whatsoever. I had hope for 2 weeks that we would get something. 2 weeks that we would have something substantive to stop the world's greatest presidential tax cheat from cheating. And we've done nothing. And this man is gonna now sail to the floor, and history is gonna show it. I know what's gonna come out in history on this president. And I know what's gonna come out on Todd.
Yeah, they are so mad about this. You have Spartacus literally in tears. Todd Blanche is gonna be the Attorney General. You have to imagine I bet you went to the bathroom of the Capitol, put in more fake teardrops, and then came back, in the middle of his time. Sorry, Chairman, wait 1 minute, gotta go. But anyways, that's the good news here. Now, the thing to watch will be, obviously, even though it made it out of committee, and unanimously so, by the way, on party lines, it was 12-10, that was the final vote. Of course, we have to make sure that it still passes through the Senate itself, so that way Todd Blanche officially is becoming the Attorney General. And we have some interesting news on this that I'm actually interpreting to be good news, because to me it indicates we have the votes here, but I'll explain why. So Susan Collins, Maine senator, right? Kind of a RINO by nature. She has to be. She's in a very blue state, as a matter of fact. But she came out and announced that she will be voting no on confirming Todd Blanche as Attorney General. Now, the thing to understand about Susan Collins and her no vote is that every single time it's basically kayfabe when we have the margin to make it seem like, hey, I'm gonna take a stand with the Democrats so that way I can win in Maine. Because if you remember, for example, back in 2018, in the end, she ended up voting, for example, for Trump's Supreme Court justices, even amidst liberal pressure. And in the end, every single time, she's a team player. Okay, and so that's the thing to understand about the Susan Collins vote in particular, and why you might be asking, why do you give Susan Collins a pass, but you don't give Thom Tillis and John Cornyn especially passes, or Bill Cassidy out of Louisiana? Because that's the reason why. She is a team player. She knows exactly what she's doing. And in the end, she throws less of a fit about stuff than you deep state red Republicans. But the reason I'm saying that is because very likely if she's voting no, yes, that's giving Trump a razor thin margin, but it does probably insinuate, it probably does confirm the Republicans do indeed have the votes, and this is going to go through, and that's why Susan Collins has come out in opposition. Hopefully that makes sense, if you see what I'm saying there. Now, you could easily interpret it as the opposite and say, hey, that means the moderate Republicans are going to have a problem with this. And this is not a done deal, so it's something to watch. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm just going to say that right now. The fact that Collins is saying she's going to vote no is a good indication we have the votes. Don't take it as gospel. Don't take it 100%. I could be wrong about that, but that is my current theory. But certainly, this is the second battle we're going to have to fight. The Republicans on the floor likewise have to come to the table. They have to play ball. But the fact that Cornyn and Tillis, two of the most highly respected RINOs by, Senate leadership there, ended up voting to confirm probably there is good news. Of course, the other question, though, is, as we covered, it's the same issue with the Save America Act. The RINO leadership wants the Senate to go on recess. Are they going to basically get this all done before the clock runs out? Another thing to watch.
We can continue to sit around. It's also true on the Russian sanctions bill, but especially is true with respect to election integrity. And I'm not criticizing anybody. I know the way the Senate works, and you do too, Madam Chair. Senators will stall and restall and cuss and spit, and we need one more meeting. I can't tell you how many meetings I've been in the last 6 months that should have been an email, that could have been an email to talk about the Russian sanctions bill and to talk about election integrity and to try to get a consensus. It's not going to happen. And if there is a motion made on this floor to have us remain here until we get our work done, I'm going to vote yes. I'm going to vote yes. I can tell you right now. And what is the work we need to get done? In no particular order, we need to pass the Russian sanctions bill. We need to pass the budget resolution, which will include election integrity. We need to confirm Todd Blanche. We need to pass the continuing resolution to keep government open until December the 11th.
Yeah, so I'd say that's the biggest thing to watch, is whether the Senate gets all of this done before they just declare they're going on vacation for the month of August. And then, the process has to restart itself and you're going to be stuck in election season and nobody's working because they're all campaigning. The way they sometimes can run out the clock on this type of stuff. And that's my concern. Probably my biggest concern is whether procedure basically blocks this from getting done in the end. And it's not just about Todd Blanche, okay? You certainly know my feelings on the Save America Act situation. I'm guessing if you're watching this far into the video, you would 100% agree on that. But even an issue like keeping the government open, there is currently a continuing resolution, a bipartisan one that would keep the government open until December, until right after the midterm elections. Why is that important, by the way? Because we need to make sure that Democrats don't pull the stupid trick they did in last year's elections, if you remember, which is, hey, let's run nationwide elections during a government shutdown, blame it on the Republicans, and get all of our government workers, our voter base, and welfare-reliant people, likewise our voter base, to come out and vote. Okay, that's not going to be a good thing either. So there are things, even for the self-preservation of the Republicans in that election, that they need to get done. And let's just hope in the end, they end up saying we're going to work instead of go on vacation, because, clearly a lot of these people are trying to use the August recess as an excuse to kind of kill the progress, because they don't want to come out and directly say, oh, I'm against Save America. I'm against Todd Blanche. I'm basically trying to hand the election to the Democrats. So instead they're going to say, well, we need to call recess, guys. So something to watch there for sure. But overall, big picture, I would say the situation's looking rather good for us. So keep an eye on that. But anyways, that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. And until next time, God bless and peace.